everybody. I am beyond pleased to be with my dear friend, and we are friends for years, right? Now it's been years. We are chatting and having fun with each other from over the pond. Please welcome the legendary, the guy who brought back the Kane Schaefer system to reality, Mr. Filippo SOLODALLAS Olivieri himself. Welcome, man. Welcome, brother.
Mathieu, it's real joy to be with you today. You introduced me well, at least in the part that says that it's a joy to be with you. And yes, we have been friends online and over the phone for quite a few years, esteeming each other work. I love what you do. And it's a joy to be with you today and with our listeners from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I'm currently speaking from Florida in the United States of America. It's just another hot day in Florida.
Yeah, we were having fun off camera before starting the show. I was like, is that a tornado? And it was just your fan, and making whines on your microphone and stuff. But so I can't be more thrilled than welcoming you in the new show I'm hosting, because it's lockdown here. So it's called the Matt's VideoCast, and I'm beyond pleased, having you. Because for the first reason is we've been friends for years now, and the second reason is that I started the Matt's Guitar Shop and playing guitar basically because of the guy we're seeing, behind you, Angus Young and AC/DC, and while we're talking, that's him holding, by the way, the Schaefer Tower replicas that you guys are making with SOLODALLAS, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Basically,
and I have news for our friends. Yes, sorry to interrupt.
I can't even imagine what this Filippo I'm seeing on the picture is feeling on that precise moment. With probably I don't even recall some players who are when you see an SG in a guitar shop, you immediately think about Angus Young, and I don't even imagine another player, because there are so many good Strats player, Les Paul player, and stuff like that out there. But Angus really bought the SG for himself, and I can't even imagine you knowing and about our conversation about AC/DC. I can't even imagine how this Filippo behind the Filippo I'm seeing now. What did you feel in that moment?
Allora, see, I said it in Italian, and that's because you touched the core.
Yeah.
And it's with this particular Italian. Now, I have all the goosebumps, and that's something that who knows me well in person knows that I tend to get the goosebumps when we're talking about a certain type of music and certain artists and a certain way of playing. Now, when it comes down to Angus Young, he is my, as well as probably your, hero and God, to the point that I'm gonna make a small pause here. I was sitting in front of Angus, and it was just, I was going to tell you just like you in front of me right now, but he was actually sitting on the sofa in that room at the warehouse studio where I went in Canada to meet with him. And at some point I just said, AC/DC is my religion. I don't know how that came out, because there was some sort of subject that we were talking about. Might have been religion, or I don't know. I can't remember that particular, but I remember telling him, AC/DC is my religion. And he looked at me and said, you're nuts, mate. Something like that. A very humble guy. Wow. I love him. Okay. And I can love him even more because I know that he's extremely humble and shy, because he is. And that was important for me. And now you asked me one thing and I started talking. You know that I can talk for 4 days, probably more. So you will just stop me when you think that it's appropriate. But with reference to the particular question that was, Phil, how did you feel when you were there? Now, Mathieu, I want you and our listeners today to know that I was conscious about the fact that, because I think it was 34, 35 years old. I'm much older now. No, probably I was.
That's all right.
I was older. I even forget what age I was.
It's not about talking about age. We don't care. You were with them.
It's about the heart, and you're perfectly right. I know this very well. But the point is this: I was very conscious about this thing. What do you do when you meet your hero? Okay, so that was the point for me.
Thing.
How do you feel? How do you, and for the first time in your life, you go and meet your hero, and you actually talk about things that are related to his music, his way of being, and specifically a product that he had requested, actually, that we brought to him when we got in touch through the management. So, and for us, it was just supposed to be a short visit with Kenny Schaefer. I love you, Kenny.
Yeah, I love you too, Kenny.
And he, yes, yeah, he's looking forward to meeting you. I told him about you, of course, and whether you come to New York, which I would fly to New York as soon as this foolish virus, which is not foolish at all, of course, we all know that it's even too real, but at least as soon as this thing goes away, I can't wait to revert to normal life. And I want to see you, mon frère, fratello mio, my brother, in the US as well, you know, hopping from one place to the other, as you used to do. And as we told each other before, I can't wait to be in Paris. This being said, once again, Kenny was there. And Kenny and I were supposed to be just for 5 minutes. Drop the tower, which you see Angus back there holding, and then leave. It didn't work that way. So we stayed hours and hours, probably 3 hours. We started talking. We started exchanging, you know, ideas and emotions and information. And at the very first, again, back to the question you asked me, how did you feel? I was petrified.
Of course.
I
Who would not be
petrified. So also parce also why, and I will try to refrain to speak any further French because I suck at it, but you need to teach me some better, huh? Okay?
I will.
That's for another day.
After 2 glasses of wine in New York City, we will speak perfectly French.
So it was the second floor on the, I think it's Studio B, I forget, at the warehouse. So we walked the stair. It's not a ladder, it's a stair going up. And we find them having dinner. Okay, so it was, oh, wow, did we just coming too early? No, you know, no,
too soon. It's too soon.
Is it too early, too soon for you guys? You know, because we were 5 minutes probably in advance. And Ellen, Angus' wife, was absolutely terrific. She said, no, don't worry, come sit at the table with us. You know, I was like moving like a robot. And I hope I didn't show it too badly. And she offered me food. So I started eating the rice that she had made, actually, rice and chicken. I'll never forget that. It was delicious. And that, of course, warmed me up. And so I was ready to have a dialogue with Angus, and we started talking. Thanks to Kenny. Kenny also can talk very much. All right, he's not even Italian, but he's a New Yorker, so that's another quality that the New Yorkers have.
Yeah,
they talk and they can talk a lot. So we started talking with Angus, remembering the old times. Remember, guys, Ken Schaefer, the inventor of the original Schaefer Vega diversity system, a wireless system, the first reliable and great working reliable system for guitar and bass, invented in 1975. Before any other, before Nady, before any other, he invented that. So he used to be friends with AC/DC, good friends, and they were just young folks. We're talking about 25, 27 years old kids. That's what that was their age at the time in the 70s when they got to meet, which was essentially, by the way, in 77, I think, or 78, when I think it was August 77, if I remember properly, when AC/DC got the first SVD.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And so Kenny and Angus used to be friends, and Angus, this is something nobody knows, but Angus actually slept at Kenny's current penthouse in New York.
Wow.
So Ken Schaefer apartment in New York has seen a huge number of artists going there, including Jimi Hendrix, John Lennon, Joe Perry of Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Kenny, be friends
I think
with,
even I think I even seen pictures of David Gilmour using a Schaefer back then. Like it was like the wireless system that was mainly used by you know, rock stars and stuff.
which is very true. Also, partially because it was so expensive back then that, and it was a different world, people. It was not the same world that we have today,
Yeah.
where we can hope and imagine and dream to have a lower cost, or just maybe buying with different installments, you know, a very expensive product, such as for example, an expensive guitar such as this one, or such as the ones that my friend from Paris is very successful at placing in the world. And by the way, I can't wait to play your stuff.
We are talking about this later.
That's more goosebumps. For example, something like that.
That's for the AC/DC fans there, but it's later.
Voila. So in those days, you know, guys, you didn't have enough money. You couldn't get something. You can buy it. So these bands and AC/DC, when they got the Schaefer Vega, they weren't rich at all, because it's 77 or 78, guys. So AC/DC still is not very famous at all. However, they had heard about this magic wireless thing, and so they met in New York with Angus Young first, and then in Los Angeles again. And they got a bunch of those units. But how did I get speak? Okay, so it wasn't extremely popular because it was expensive. Now imagine it was $4,500 of US dollars back in the 70s.
Wow.
If we index that amount nowadays, it's $22,000 as a system.
Yeah,
but
like a very
you know, back in the 70s, beaucoup d'argent, very much
a lot of money.
Voilà. So it was hard for the common people to actually be able to afford it. And Pink Floyd not only bought one for David, they bought 21 systems.
But they were huge already. Pink Floyd was, they were huge.
They were huge, and so probably that's also why David Gilmour used it for so many years, because he had so many units that even after Kenny had left Vega in '81 to go to NASA, but Pink Floyd had just so many units that probably that's why he kept on using that system for 10 years straight, which also tells you very much about the quality and the fact that the systems didn't simply die like that. But yes, so definitely David Gilmour was another one of the users.
Yeah.
So as you can see, Mathieu, I jumped from one thing to another. So just stop me and bring me back where you want me to be.
But it's just about
if
after you know, because we as AC/DC fans, you know, and we of course I've all seen that footage of pictures that you guys put on the internet with that day with Angus. And I think that was during the recording session of Rock or Bust, if my memory is correct. I think that was in the studio when they were starting to do it. And
yeah, they're yes.
Yeah, it's just about, you know, we were all at the same time envious and at the same time so admirative about what you've done, you know, because that's something nobody really ever done, you know, in the past 25, 30 years, we never see any pictures of Angus Young in the studio actually writing stuff, showing, I don't even recall himself showing his SG recently. And I've seen you holding, like, we can see the Back in Black SG, we can see, okay, I hate you right now, but that's all right. But, you know, I can't even recall Angus being like standing up and showing one of his SGs to you, to actually in the picture, that guy, and that guy is actually trying the real thing. Was that, by the way, was that like on the pictures you just showed me, was that like a prototype that Gibson made him, or was that the original JD replica that JD made him back then?
Yes, there were both of those actually. So there's the prototype. If you look, you can see it. There's the prototype. He's got a few of those ones actually, so we have to be extremely careful in saying this is that guitar, and not even he is not sure 100%. This is very funny, you guys. You know it already, but for the guys that are listening to us, it's very funny. Angus is not a gear person.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean that he cannot listen and hear and enjoy
the
right gear when he hears. He's an amazing player, and he'll hear it and feel it like this. All right. Even about the picks, he told me that he goes through voila, extra heavy. He goes through packs and packs, and he just tests each one of them.
Wow.
You know, for the proper solidity, and when he finds the proper one, he just selects that, puts it in another bag, and that's going to be the pick for the session or the pick for the tour. So there's that, and this is talking about picks. But regarding the guitars, he's not 100% sure of what is what. So, for example, I was here and I was, you know, testing all of those guitars, which was a life dream for me since I was a kid. So I listened for the first time to AC/DC when I was 10 years old. That was actually 78. Very funny. It was the same year that they, or the year after, or just a few months after they had gotten the SPDS, which is very interesting.
By the way,
which huge coincidence.
Which album, you're talking about 78. So which album brought you in finally? Because we, as AC/DC fans, there is always one song, one riff, or one album that finally is bringing us in the AC/DC religion finally. So in your case, which album brought you in?
So you saw, I hope the connection is good for you and for our friends, but you saw me shaking my head. I was shaking my head because it's like you are me and I am you. And this is very common to many of us, AC/DC fans or fans of a certain type of music and musicians in general. But that's a question that I love very much. And so I thank you very much for asking that question. So I was in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking with a friend, and we were barely 10, 11 years old. So we just had the permission from my mom to go alone to the record store. I still remember the name of the record store. It doesn't exist anymore. It was called Discoland, which is a very English name. Voila, for Rome. But, you know, the Italians always loved the American English sounding words. Yeah. And so it was called Discoland. So we entered and we saw on the display window a guy, with a guitar in his chest, like this.
Wow.
Okay. The guitar was black. And it was a black SG. And of course, that's Angus Young on the cover of If You Want Blood, You've Got It.
Of course.
Which is
when he's bleeding and, you know, the stuff we all know. Which is actually, I think that's the first live they recorded and put out. You know, that's the first live record, I think.
Yes. So yes, the answer is yes. As a non-bootleg, that was the first live album that was actually produced and released by George. It was George's idea about that, and I know a couple of things that you and our listeners may be interested in. George was very much. First off, he loved what he was producing. So this little band of his kids and brothers. But secondly, also, he was very much in tune with the decade, with the 70s. And one thing that was very much in fashion was to release at least a live album that was well produced and would give an impression of what the band actually sounded live. Whether or not there was the 100% reality of that band, that didn't really matter, especially in the 70s. So what I'm trying to tell you, my friends, is that not all we hear on that particular album is actually a live take from those sessions in Glasgow or other, as you guys might know. For example, Whole Lotta Rosie, which is probably track number 6 in that album, is actually a studio take that has been transformed into a live sort of special effect sounding thing that it will not shock some of you that you're hearing this now, but it's an alternate studio take that George very craftfully and masterfully actually prepared to be released as a as a single for that particular live album. And that thing worked wonders. I still listen to that particular version more than the album version from Let There Be Rock. That was the studio of it. Okay, so I like Whole Lotta Rosie better on the live version, which is again an alternate take from Let There Be Rock studio, and then transformed, produced into a live sounding.
So can we say Whole Lotta Rosie brought you in? Is that the song that brought you to AC/DC? Yeah. And that's the why you're in.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's the album that brought me in. I would picture Angus, and I had never seen AC/DC in my life. And there was, in 78, still no footage that, Italy would probably be the last country to show you rock and roll on television, and certainly not from AC/DC. Because the Italians, even back then, they were all about, oh, sole mio. Okay,
yeah.
That was never my thing, I appreciate some Italian artists and the traditional Italian music, but it was never my thing. I was more into the rock and roll thing. I was more into that and the dance music from the 70s. I also liked that very much. So I could picture in my head Angus doing that thing that we do. I could picture Angus doing that. I thought that, and actually, I thought that he was actually putting the guitar like a violin, because it did sound to my kids' ears like a violin playing. And there are, in fact, if you think about it, Mathieu, some interesting qualities that are violin-like in Angus penetrating guitar sound, especially on the solos, which is also typical of Gibson SGs, such nasal, penetrating, at times a little bit acid and harsh, of course, which is typical of the mahogany top and the small body of solid state guitars such as an SG. So those sounds, guys, brought me in, and I fell in the rabbit hole the first time I heard that tape. It was a tape, guys, with the earphones. A little kid. I didn't grow very much, actually. Not even yet. I'm still back then, mon ami. And when I heard that album like that with my friends, who I still am in touch and good friends nowadays. He lives in, I think he lives in Belgium. And I still am grateful to him, because he was the guy that actually introduced me to AC/DC. So that's why I'm thanking you, Mathieu, for asking that question, because that album to me was absolutely, and still is, sacred, because it's what brought me in. I still listen to that album, and I still marvel at those performances. And now, even as an additional coincidence, that was the album. Probably, I forget if it came out before Powr Age, which also is from 78. I forget if you Want Blood, You Got It came out before Powr Age. But the interesting thing is that was certainly one of the first works from AC/DC where the SVDS could be heard. And I didn't know, of course, that at the time, but it just hit me. Sorry, brother. It just hit me years later, a few years ago, when I started thinking, oh my God, that was the first album that I started listening, and it got me into AC/DC. And that has the SVDS all over the place.
Wow. And in the studio, because that's also, we are talking about, because it was a wireless system. And of course, that's, the first why Angus started to play that on stage, because, they had so many trouble. We all, as AC/DC fans, we all remember Bon Scott, having Angus on his shoulders and with the guitar cable, and they were like pissed off because sometimes it become unplugged, So of course we have the wireless system, which is very helpful for Angus's playing during the AC/DC show. But what we have to mention that, as you said, The Schaefer replica is as well an amazing studio masterpiece because it adds some compression on your sound and it modified that. I have a tower here, and it modifies the compression of your sound, and when you're mixing, actually that's an amazing weapon to get through the mix, in my opinion. And I don't know if you know that, but do you know if Malcolm as well used it, or it was only for Angus?
Yes, I know, of course, I know. I was going to slap myself. I know everything. This, I'm going to slap myself. No, I know many things, and we asked all the questions. And sometimes we'll still ask some questions to the people that, I mean, some of those guys aren't with us anymore, so I can't ask Malcolm, unfortunately. I never met him in person. But we are still, and actually more now than ever, in touch with the AC/DC production that still lives with the guys nowadays, and some of the older guys and the older folks that used to work with AC/DC. So we still ask, or try to ask, the relevant questions. And when I say we, I mean all the people in the SOLODALLAS team, which is a ever-growing team. So Malcolm never used it. Malcolm tested it several times, but I believe that it was so expensive, that they bought two systems, but they were both supposed to be for AC/DC, for Angus, because it was so expensive that, you know, it was a sacred cow, and it would only be used for Angus in case one broke. He needed to be ready to go with the other, and each of the two receivers had two transmitters associated. Now, it seems like it's a foolish thing, but please remember, this is 1978. This is full analog equipment. Nothing is digital. And even the transmitter and that receiver, they were associated and tied together by frequency modulation technology, which means that you have to have a quartz that is set on only set specific frequencies, and you cannot change those frequencies. So it was really tied technologically, you know, the transmitter to the receiver. So it was a very tough thing, you know, in case I'm just going to get the other, you know, transmitter from the other system. You can't use it because it's got a different quartz in it. So a whole lot of problems that are due, of course, to the older technology of that time. But it worked. It worked when it needed to work. So the thing was this, that to answer what your very wise notes about what it does to the sound, I was listening in my basements in Rome, actually, constantly to Back in Black. And I had made this project Back in Black, which is still there on our solodallas.com, our site, our blog. It still lives as a testament in the archives of what I did back then. And I just came to the conclusion, Mathieu, that I had recorded so many versions, and I still keep on recording them, that I just had figured out without a sort of boost, the sound wasn't that. I mean, the solos, it just wasn't cutting it. So now I'm using, in this particular room, I'm just using a Marshall code right now because it's easier for you and I in this particular transmission over continents. It was the easiest thing to do. So this is the sound of the without the Schaefer, which I have down here on my pedal board. I have one of these, which is the pedal format. Ladies and gentlemen, friends that follow us from home. So this is one of our pedals.
The one.
And voila. So without it, very clean sound. Okay. Now, if you add the Schaefer all maxed out, and that would happen with the wireless, and I will explain how, you're going to get that, specifically the solo. I mean, the difference between off and on is just.
Wow.
You get that specific Angus thing, you know. Merci. You get
But
that
to
specific
play like
Angus
him
thing
too.
with the Was that?
It's much more easier with the pedal to play like him. It's crazy, but I have to recognize that you're pretty good about you know, playing the Angus thing, you know, because what people tell me always when people are watching your videos, they always tell me it's crazy. This guy has Angus's touch, which is super, like one of the best compliments ever, you know, and and it's amazing how you play those licks. But I have to say, I don't have your. It's not that easy for me to have that Angus thing, but with your pedal, it's so much easier. So thank you for helping us. You know.
Je t'aime, and grazie. Thank you so much. But it's true, it is easier, and the reason is not only the compression that you wisely mentioned, but it's truly there's a bunch of stuff in there in the recipe that we cloned from the original, and that sort of, it's a pushing and pulling and limiting and then compressing and then pushing again, even the signal. So there's definitely a boost and some limiting, some compression, which will also help the sustain. Because I was wondering, you know, when you hear Back in Black, the solos on Back in Black,
Yeah,
and you hear Angus going with that down da 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 down. Now, of course, I'm getting all the sustain in the world, and I didn't want that sustain right now because the unit is not even there. But you can hear that there's in Angus notes, you got all that sustain note.
yeah.
Okay, so now it dies quickly, as you could hear. Now you had this thing.
Right.
You finally get that sustain. And that's actually exactly this thinking and this type of experiment without not having it. And you can do whatever you want with the amp. You can blast it. It's not going to be different, especially with older Marshalls. You know, it's only going to get harsher, thinner, the sound with the older Marshalls. And I knew that all they had in the studio was the older Marshalls. So I was always comparing back and forth. How do they get that thick sound? Is it really Angus with his fingers? How can it be, man?
That's
to that extent. Of course, then I studied
and I saw you guys. I saw you guys are so perfectionist, and you're doing like the AC/DC and Marshall thing to the right way, that I even seen that you guys are making amplifier now. Am I correct? You guys are making some SOLODALLAS Marshall typed ads that we can also order through your website. Can you tell us more about this? Because I think you are worldwide famous for that pedal, and I think people just understood what it does to your sound. But can you tell us about the of course, man, and can you tell us about the Marshall ads? Because it's not Marshall, it's your brand, of course. But why are they so special? Because I didn't try one yet, but I'm sure, knowing your taste and knowing your perfectionism of all things in your signal chain, I'm pretty sure it's amazing.
Yes, I'll bring one to you when I go to you in Paris, or if you come here before, we'll play a bunch of them together. Now, you did say it's not a Marshall in the sense that it's our brand. We make it in house, and it came after a whole lot of research. Of course, we discovered the Schaefer first, and when I say we, I have to mention our engineer Dries Potteden.
Yeah,
a Flemish guy from the
a friend of mine on Facebook as well, and he's such an amazing guy.
He likes you very much, and he's actually very much closer to you, to Paris. So I might actually keep his Flemish buttocks to go visit you. But he would tell me, oh, no, they're in lockout, huh? We're all in lockout, Phil. So, okay. So with Dries, what we started doing after, and Dries is the guy that really reverse engineered to perfection the original system and brought us all the current products. So Dries is just a young European genius, period.
All over the top.
Voila. But we did hear, and we realized that much of the sound that we heard was certainly coming from the Schaefer, especially for the solos, but that it wasn't completing 100% of the sonic scene that we hear from AC/DC. AC/DC was actually, it's quite very varying over the years, you know. So one could say that the sound never changes for AC/DC. I couldn't disagree more than that, because actually, with thanks to production and thanks to the use and hence of different rooms and so on and so forth, I think that we're able to add quite some variance over the years. But in particular, again, we were after one specific sound that we couldn't capture, and that was, if you guys ever heard that song "Shoot to Thrill."
Yeah, some rings a bell.
Thank you. So you will hear the opening riff from Angus, which is, I mean, it's a signature of rock and roll nowadays. Doesn't sound quite much like it on this Marshall code, of course. Well, that amp, we were wondering, what could it be? What is it? Because we could hear the compression on it. We could hear the type of saturation. It definitely was not a 100 watts Marshall. It was not a super lead. Now, super leads are what Angus has been saying for decades that was his favorite amp. But if you actually go back to the interviews of the early 80s and the late 70s, he will switch his usual stance, saying, yeah, my favorite thing is a super lead. He will not say that anymore in those years. And he said, I don't know, we use a 50 watts. 50 watts? You use a 50 watts? In the studio, you use a 50? Yeah. And live? Yeah, also live. Oh, is that so? So they were using, for Angus, a 50 watts amp in the studio?
That's a news.
So we started researching. And then we finally found out that that amp was a very rare transitional, listen guys, 50 watts head called the JTM 50. It's not a JTM 45. Most of the guys, if you look online, what's Angus Young's favorite amp? JTM 45. That's a lie. Angus never liked JTM 45s, and I can tell you why. And I will, in fact. Angus' favorite amp for a long time was the JTM 50, if it's not the super lead, which I would consider his truly favorite amp. Now, just to restate this newest album that just came out last Friday, ladies and gentlemen, Powr Up, has been recorded by Angus almost exclusively on super leads, so 100 watts amplifiers, with a Schaefer tower on all solos, by the way. And I think I hope this is a pleasing visual news that I can. So merci, thank you very much.
Off camera, we can say now it's been months since we're talking about Powr Up, you and I. You know, we were like texting, like, it's coming, what's happening, are they using towers on there, you know? So I remember like conversations back in I think March, you know, and we were already starting to, you knew of course, but because it's been recorded 2 years ago, but I was starting asking you question, and you know, we kept it confidential till today, you know.
Yes.
But it's crazy to, you know, he recorded you can be proud of yourself, because you were an AC/DC fanatic since 78, and finally 4 decades later, the guy is recording not one, but he's recording 2 albums with your product. And of course, Kenny deserved the point to, he invented that. But finally, I was an amazing AC/DC fans. I was a guitar geek of Angus's Stone, and I didn't know about the Schaefer thing. So you brought it back, in my opinion, to reality, and you can be super proud. And I think everybody is proud of you online, and you're super followed by AC/DC fans, because Angus, one of the one guy that is worldwide famous for being like, oh yeah, I just want my guitar, a cable, the amp. No, he's putting your thing between the guitar and the amp for 2 albums. So congrats. I mean, that's such a thing.
Thank you so very much. I mean, I listened to you saying this thing, you know, and I don't feel like it's me. It's another Phil somewhere that did this thing, you know. It doesn't feel like I'm actually living through these experiences, especially when I live through them with all the talented people that I met through the years, and you know, the many that are actually using our technology. And it is unreal to me, Matthias, still to realize that, and it is essential. It is important for me personally in my life. I mean, it makes a difference on a daily basis when I go back to thinking that, because it always was for me, my friend. You know, it was this child dream was just that. I've been so obsessed with it. Even, you know, I led a normal life, but I was always very much into this particular kind of sound that I always thought was so natural, so classic, so good, so desirable. So that's why I got obsessed with it, particularly with the entirety of the sound of AC/DC, because I think that of course, it's a recipe that's made of many, many things, and first and foremost by their talent, which is huge and immense, and it's almost hard to describe. Many people, Mathieu, when you talk about AC/DC, they tell you, yeah, that stuff, it's easy. It's just the 3 chords, right? It's just many songs. It's the same song over and over made of 3 chords. I wish it was that simple. That was the thing that actually got me, believe it or not. My first videos, my very first video that I did in 2006, when YouTube got started, was I showed up with all my goofiness saying, you know, guys, actually, there's not so much drive in these guitars in rock and roll when you hear them. Yeah. You know, these are tube amps, not this one that I'm playing now, but these are tube amps, and you know, there's not so much drive and saturation. It's way cleaner than many of you think. So that the first video started like that, and then I went more into AC/DC, trying to tell my humble version of what it was really like and that philosophy. And if I may announce, thanks to your kind show now today, we're preparing a number of videos ourselves where I actually go through the philosophy of, I should say AC/DC, but it's not appropriate. I would say Angus playing or Malcolm playing, and the way and the sound, how it was crafted, and what it really takes to play like that, which is not easy at all. So now that I have more time available, because the company has been launched and we're doing well, we're selling well, so I have a little bit more time, especially here in Florida, which is typical a place for retired and old farts. So I have more time. Voilà, c'est true. That I can do such videos. So that's why I'm preparing all this room to do that kind of thing. So I'm sure that some of us, at least, will be interested in this.
Oh yeah, we're looking
so playing AC/DC.
We really look forward to see it, and you know that I brought some things, you know, that you might enjoy, and that the followers, because I think this interview is going to attract so many AC/DC fans today. So I brought one thing that I have here and one thing that I have here. We are going to
take it out.
You know, we are going to start with something, you know, that was modified since, you know, it left AC/DC's camp, but that's on camera. That's Cliff Williams 1964-ish Fender Precision, and that was one of 2 he was playing when you discovered the band, because I think Cliff joined in late 77, early 78, something like that. And he had like, there is a gig at the Apollo Theater that we all know with Bon Scott, because it's such a good show. And he was using that particular bass, which was white back then. And you know, we're pretty lucky to have it since I think I bought that in 2017 because a friend, Cliff already sold it to a friend of his, and the guy was playing with Artemis Pyle with of Lynyrd Skynyrd in Nashville, and
Oh, wow.
he contacted me, and when Cliff retired, he decided to sell few bases basically. So he sold the 66 Precision
For
Sunburst.
charity. No, he did it for charity. Charity.
I think
No.
it's because the story, and this is what AC/DC fans really wants to see. Because the story that I got a call from someone in Nashville called Dave Fowler, and he's a buddy of mine today. But the story is, I found the full thing, and the guy is sending me an email, and he's like, I got two Music Man Stingray Sunburst that were Cliff Williams since 76 to 2017. And you know, I was very emotional because I saw AC/DC playing with, okay, it was Axl Rose and he did a good job in my opinion, but I saw them in Madison Square Garden. So that was the not the last show, but the I think, yeah, they were playing in Philadelphia the day after that, and then Cliff retired. So it was one of his last supposed show. And then Cliff decided to sell, he bought 5 Music Man Sunbursts like that in 76. He bought it or he get hundreds. I don't know the real story, but the fact is that I'm receiving this email that he gave 5 for charity and he signed it. And he decided to sell number 3 and number 4. So I don't know if we can see on camera, but that's number 3 over here. And
Right there.
so I bought number 3 and 4, and he didn't play it in the studio. And I was having that conversation, if you remember, with Trace, Angus's and Cliff's guitar tech back in March. You know, that's not a funny story too.
Let's salute Trace.
Yeah,
Send him the link.
Trace is amazing. He's the man, and he was so kind. You know, he even learned me some stories on my instrument, which I appreciated very much. So because of his history, because the guy in Nashville didn't know really much about the history of what Cliff did with what. So back then I bought 5 Cliff Williams basses. I bought the silver one that he was apparently using as a spare during Steve Apocalypse tour. I bought those 2. This one, number 3, was playing live, as you can see, by Cliff, because I didn't do that by myself. You know, Cliff did it. So as you can see, he played it live. He didn't play that one in the studio because he was playing number 1, which has a teeny wood grain here, if you look at the picture. So that's number 1. And so I brought that for the interview today because I think, first of all, you are a big AC/DC fan, and I think you just bought the same bass, by the way. I seen a few months ago. You just bought that.
I did.
And so I brought that for the fans because, I mean, AC/DC, I'm dealing, as you know, with artists' own guitar mainly and vintage high-end things. But I can say that AC/DC is not into like, I'm going to play that guitar for one tour and I'm going to sell it, or they never sell things. Because as you said, they're not collectors. They just play good instruments. And so, I mean, when you will, I think we can, because I'm going to say it more officially, but I think we're going to work about like a very limited edition of SOLODALLAS thing we're going to do together next year, and I'm super happy doing it. And we next year we're going to, I think, if pandemic is over, you're going to come to the shop. We're going to do a very special evening with people and fans all around around Europe. And I think that might be a thrill for me to see you as well playing that, you know, because that's my pride and joy for 3 years now.
Yes, very well said, very well described. You're showing a bass, by the way, that not only was played by Cliff, and for a long time he still plays those Stingrays.
Yeah.
But it is not only played by him and chosen by him in 70. When did he start playing them? You think 77?
During the first time I saw him playing that was, I think, maybe for the Let There Be Rock tour, maybe. I'm not sure, but the Let There Be Rock DVD is playing that for sure. So maybe 77, 78, I think. 78, I think.
So, and he switched to largely to stingrays, and the reason is that those particular stingrays of 76, 7, 8, whenever that started coming out, was it 76, the very first one?
I think so,
Probably.
yeah. Yeah.
Those are amazing. So not only you are holding a piece of rock history owned and played by our beloved Cliff. Hey, Cliff!
Yeah, Cliff.
By the way,
we love you, man.
Very much so. Cliff lives here in Florida as well. You may or may not know it, but Cliff lives in Fort Myers, nearby Fort Myers, which is not far from where I live in Sarasota. And we're saying this actually to our friends and around here. You do know that Brian Johnson also lives here in Sarasota, where I live now. You do know that.
Such a bad thing, right?
So I look forward to meeting him as soon, if he's not busy doing other things. And we have so many friends in common, so it's just something that's going to happen soon. But anyway, you are holding an incredible instrument that is very rare. Today's Stingray, they don't sound like that one. And I encourage you guys to go to YouTube and see the comparisons between today's contemporary Stingray and what these sound like. These made in 76, 77, 78, 79, you know, at the end of the 70s. These are very special instruments. And they were...
Yes, sir. We can still see the... I think Trace might have done it, or I don't know, but we can see like the mark in black marker to mention the tone, you know. So that's one of the best thing that happened in my small career, but that's definitely one of the best thing, you know.
Well, I've seen you with tons of artists with your beautiful big smile, just like that. You know, you have tons of great experiences, and I know that. Because I know who you are, and I can see through you, and I know that you're like that. So it is something of you saying that, you know, owning and purchasing that bass is one of your best. It is something, you know, because it's not like one thing in a lifetime that happened to you. You are dealing with this almost on a daily basis. Fanculo
on another topic you mentioned, we were talking about since a few months, we were talking before the release of Powr Up, the last album. I think the guys who are going to watch this interview, of course, we know that Angus used SOLODALLAS product on the album, which is amazing. But did you listen to some songs? Did you, what did you think about the full thing? Because I was expecting something, you know. I love this album tremendously, because I'm just glad, you know, they success to be back together, firstly, which is not easy after the crisis AC/DC had over the past few years. And I think a lot of bands would have retired, you know, after Brian's health problem, after you know, Angus's and Malcolm's tragedy, and Cliff retiring. And finally, I think that's one of the best thing in AC/DC. You know, they survived to so many tragedy over the years. Even when Malcolm, you know, retired, I think during the Blow Up Your Video tour, I think when Stevie replaced him the first time. But they're back together now. And what did you think about the last thing, Powr Up?
It's another beautiful question from you, and I do thank you for this question. So I can say, because I know that Angus loves this, and I want you guys to know. So we've been in touch. I was responsible. I mean, I participated to the Back in Black 40th, you know,
amazing contest, amazing contest.
And I was indirectly in touch with Angus and Ella, so I knew that Angus was getting ready to release this album. You know, and he was very excited about this album. And guys, we need, all of us, we need to understand that what Angus is doing, he's doing it because he loves to do it.
He can't stop.
He loves doing it. So he's not doing it because he's got to, or he has to, or, you know, has some sort of obligation. He doesn't. They have so much money. They could have retired and be retired a long time ago already. And instead, he decided to go ahead once again and do this. Was it for Malcolm? Well, partially, it certainly was for in memory of Malcolm. This album was certainly dedicated to him. But that is never enough for us as human beings. We can't really do something so intrinsically motivated just for someone else. There has to be a big, strong core that comes from us. And then I can assure you guys that it comes from Angus, and he's doing this because he wants to, because he loves it. And if it was for him, he would be on the road tomorrow, okay? With a bunch of guys that we know. Now, Cliff, you said it, has been sick. Brian has had whatever he's had. Now he's on a different device, and I know all the guys that are involved in that. So I know many things. Some things we cannot even mention, but Brian has been on a particular new device that really, truly helped him. And he brought Cliff on the same device, which is something that you may or may not know.
Yeah, I've heard
also
of stories like that, yeah.
Voila. And they were using it during the rehearsals in Amsterdam when they were all there together when they were shooting for the video that we watched.
Yeah.
So they want to do it. They're doing this, and they did it because they love it. It's their life, you know. And it's not just because they also do it for us. Ellen, when I was there with them at the warehouse studio, and I want to thank Mike Fraser. Love you, Mike. Mike is the sound engineer, co-producer for most of the stuff from AC/DC that came in the past 30 years. So Mikey has been with them all along, and he was there. He is the guy that also mixed this last album. It was actually Mike that told us, Phil, they used the tower all over again, buddy, be happy. So I definitely am happy. So when I was there at the warehouse, and Ella told me, you know, Phil, much of this we do for you. And she said we, you know, probably she said they do it, you know, but I see her as really part of the band, because she is, and I can tell you this, I mean, she sides with Angus, you know, and it's a strong duo that really goes as a couple. Yes, and so she said, they do it, we do it for you guys, for the fans, you know. And I know it to be true, but I know that there has to be that love and passion and core still in Angus for rock and roll, you know. Otherwise, those songs, they would not write themselves, and they would not play themselves. It's very hard to play like AC/DC do, immensely hard. Yeah, it's an exception to the world of music.
Well, so in my opinion, you know, they're the best, and I that's my opinion, and that's just my opinion. But they are the best rock and roll band in history. You know, you got in the 60s. Of course, we still have the Stones, but AC/DC is in my opinion, the best rock and roll grooviest band in history. Because I've seen a Brian Johnson interview, and he said, you know, rock something is not hard, but make it rolling is the hardest part. And that's why I love.
He mentioned the rolling part.
Yeah,
he mentioned that.
Yeah, he mentioned, because he said, you know, it's not hard to rock, but it's hard to roll, and it's such an hard part to make.
Didn't know he said that, but that's what I say. It's rock and roll. It's not just rock. Rock can be stiff, but with the roll part, it's got the swing. Exactly. And it ain't a thing if it doesn't have the swing. That's what they used to say.
And you know, that's something I can't wait to have your opinion. But for me, AC/DC, and that's just my opinion, is super based. Of course, Malcolm was doing it, and it was his band, but it's super based on Cliff's and Phil's rhythm sections, which is one of the best hardest rhythm version of all times, in my opinion. And during the last album, there is a song called Right Reputation. I reposted on all social medias because I was listening it, and I was like, that's the AC/DC I wanted to listen on that album. Did you have in mind one favorite song that you preferred on the record?
Yes, I like the I like the first two that came out, and of course their names, because I'm an old fart. They both
Yeah,
escaped.
Shot in the Dark. Yeah.
Shot in the Dark I like very much, and then I like the what's the name of the other with starts with an R, and of course when I say, but then I also like Rejection very much. So
Yeah.
it really impressed me because there's a number of chord changes, which is G, D, and C, and man, those chords are magic to me. But Matt, I gotta stop you because you asked me what songs do I like on that album, and and pretty much these are the three ones that I like. I could go ahead and I could tell you more. There's more that I'm listening to. I like them, but I want to go back to what you said. Now, because we didn't tell each other, we didn't explain each other in the way you just explained yourself to me. Okay, but you have been extremely specific right now in the past 2 minutes, and you told me that AC/DC might as well be the best rock and roll band in the world, and you think that this comes from the bass playing and the drums. Okay. Now, you didn't know that I think exactly the same way.
There you go.
You couldn't know because we never spoke of these technicalities, which it is a technicality. Okay, this is extremely technical. We're saying it in very, dialogue. Easy, terms. It is a very technical concept. It is so technical that very few people in the world can actually play that way. They can talk about it. I'm not sure if they know what they're talking about. Because many bands would want to be there, and they say that AC/DC is easy. I still remember this cover band. They called themselves at one time AC/DZ, which made me AC/DZ. It made me laugh because there's nothing easy about that. But
yeah. And what was your favorite song on the album was Rejection, in your opinion, or
I'm listening. I find myself listening and going back to that one. So it's too early to say what's my favorite one. Mm-hmm. But so far, it was my son started playing the album as a whole on Friday when he came out, and he said, "Oh wow, Dad, I really love this one," And he was playing out of Alexa, and I heard Rejection right away.
Yeah,
which I forget what place it's got in the album, and I said, "What is this?" With all those changes and all that subtle grooving. Changing from that G to C, there are changes you don't expect to happen, Mathieu. It's not. Yeah. It's not for granted. There are unexpected changes, which I think speaks about the brilliance, I think, of those guys trying to arrange the songs in a way which is not just rejection. It's not this. Okay, there are some unexpected changes and very subtle things that do happen, and I would expect to hear something. Angus plays something. No, he's going to surprise me. He's going to do something slightly different. Yeah. Is it majorly different? Is he going to be starting to play like Beethoven? No, because he's still Angus Young, and he does say, and he did say that he made a specific effort to still make it sound like AC/DC, but slightly different. Mm-hmm. Okay, now people, Mathieu, they don't understand how difficult that can be when you wrote a catalog of hundreds of songs. Yeah. Many of which haven't even been published because they didn't even pick most of the songs that they wrote. They still lie in some booklet or some tape. It is immensely difficult to still make some songs work in a specific way that will interest you after having had so many hits and so many successful songs. It's not for granted at all. I want to talk about that.
That's the thing with AC/DC. I think there was an interview with a journalist saying to Angus Young with a lot of arrogance, like, "How do you feel about making 13, because back then it was 13 studio album who sounds the same?" And I'm sure you know the answer. And then Angus said, "No, we did 14.
I do.
Which was like one of the best interview answer of all time. And that's the thing with AC/DC. every time for every album, we're looking forward so much to it, you know. But you know, I think we could speak forever about this, but I just want everybody.
I will with you. I will. We probably have to say goodbye to our friends, and I understand that.
I just want to make sure,
everything has to come to an end.
In the video I'm going to put right now, you know, some products of yours in the mixing, and I'm going to put like a video of yours at the end. And I'm going, so of course we are pleased to announce to the guys who are going to watch this interview, we are doing to do something special in 21. And just stay tuned, because it's going to happen. Whatever the pandemic does, it's going to happen. So I'm looking forward to it.
Guys, don't lose your hope. You know, 2020 was a tough year, but don't lose your hopes. 2021 is going to be better, and the world is going to start spinning back again. Be happy. People like us, Mathieu and myself, we're not going to let it go bad. All right? So be happy and be hopeful. I promise you.
And, you know, I just to finish, I just, you know, can't thank you enough, because it's been so many years we are talking together, so many years we're chatting about the secrets of AC/DC. I don't want even to reveal 1% about what we both know about this band, you know, in the backstage parts of the band. But I just want to thank you so much, because it's just the beginning of something big, what's going to happen in 21. So thank you again for being part of the show. That's probably one of my warmest you know, interview, and that's the one I wanted to do since I started the show, you know.
I hope you understand with my utmost sincerity that it is a true joy for me to be with you, to have your friendship, and to continue our friendship until the very end. So I do say this to many of the people that I'm in touch: forever. You know, I like the word forever. I do believe in forever. Many people don't believe in that. I have proven, if I can say so humbly, I've been in, you know, I stayed in touch, and I kept on doing my thing for quite a long time. I can really tell you, you know, that forever can work, and I look forward to just staying in touch with you, just forever.
It's going, and you know, we have some plans, and we might have some surprises, you know, with nobody knows yet, but we might have some surprises with AC/DC in 21. You and I, maybe we'll see. Oh, I don't hear anything, but we might have some stuff. Let's make plans.
Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful night.
I wish you a wonderful night over there in Florida.
I hope to see you soon.
I can't wait to speak with you again, and thank you for being another guest of the show, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Ciao. Ciao, fratello. Ciao. Ciao. And thanks for everybody about watching the interview. I hope you enjoyed this episode with my friend Filippo, and you know, feel free to subscribe to our channel. Feel free to subscribe to their YouTube channel, because they also have an amazing YouTube channel if you're an AC/DC fan or just a music fan. So we are going to put the channel of Matt's Guitar Shop TV and Solo Dallas you know, on the description of this episode. Thank you very much, and I can't wait to see you all again. Phil, thank you so much for being part of it. I love you, man.
Thank you. Ciao, amigo mio. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.